Hello humans, Master DinnerFlax here, bringing you the low quality content you deserve, and today we are going to be reviewing another custom archetype. This time they're called Nucleansers. So let's get into it. So it looks like they got a full-fledged deck here. Gonna ignore the cards that are real, and let's go ahead and get into this one. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Nucleanser monster from your deck to your hand. If the effect of a Nucleanser card is activated, place one toxic counter on one monster your opponent controls. You can remove 3 toxic counters from anywhere on the field, then target one monster your opponent controls. Send that target to the graveyard. You can only use the first and third effect of Nucleanser on Radion once per turn. So, this is a tuner as well. This seems really strong. Like, it almost seems too strong. However, none of its effects I feel like this could be made and be a very powerful card, but the fact that I feel like it could be made, I think it's in the clear. I think while it is a very strong tuner level 4 searcher that has a very good effect, it is counter based. Yeah, I think this is fine. But let's get into the next one. You can remove 2 toxic counters from a monster your opponent controls to special summon this card from your hand. And if you do, place 1 toxic counter on one monster your opponent controls. If this card is used as a synchro material, place 2 toxic counters on one monster your opponent controls. Yeah, that seems fine. I don't see a problem with this one. It seems really, really simple. Nucleanser yeah. If this card is added to your hand by the effect of a Nucleanser card, you can special summon this card. And if you do, place 2 toxic counters on one monster your opponent controls. So this pretty much, if you open the tuner, you open up a synchro with 3 counters already. I'm going to assume the custom synchro has something to do with counters. If a Nucleanser monsters would leave the field, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. Absolutely not. That's awful card design. When it says leave the field, to give you an idea, if this thing's in your graveyard and you got a synchro of this guy and any other Nucleanser on the field, you can synchro summon just by banishing from your graveyard. You just say, I'm synchroing with this, and I'll just banish this. So now I can make 2 synchros. That's really, really dumb. I think that's awful card design. I don't even care that it's a hard once per turn. That's just way, way too powerful. You're already playing zombies. They have enough field recursion. They have enough ways to get monsters out of the graveyard. Your own deck has ways to work with the graveyard from what I'm seeing. So that needs to not be a thing. Yep, not custom. What is this one? Nucleanser Origins. Activate one of these effects. Discard 1 Nucleanser card, draw 2 cards. Yeah, very good. Again, it's probably why this shouldn't have this effect. Maybe if it said if you would do 1, it could only use 1. So like you can banish this from your graveyard to substitute it as the levels for a synchro summon. I think that would be much better. And what does this other one do? Send 1 Nucleanser monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard. Then place toxic counters among face-up monsters opponent controls equal to the number of the level sent. During either player's turn, quick effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 Nucleanser monster you control. This turn it cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. It's very bloated. It's either a Foolish Burial or a Destiny Draw. That's really, really, really strong. I think they could make this. I think this is, again, barely in the clear. It's really strong, but it's not too strong. But it is questionable. Alright, if this card is activated, you can add 1 Nucleanser card from your deck to your hand. All Nucleanser monsters you control gain 400 attack and defense. Each time a Nucleanser monster is summoned, place 1 toxic counter on one monster your opponent controls. This card would leave the field due to an opponent's card effect. You can remove one toxic counter from an opponent's monster you control instead. So, the funny thing is, as soon as you activate this, there's no incentive for your opponent to even try to remove this, because it's only giving, like, as soon as you activate it, the value of it's almost completely gone. The only thing it does now is recur counters and give buffs, which, yeah, that could be problematic later, but it's like, I don't know. I don't actually think this thing needs protection. There's like no incentive for it to have protection. As a matter of fact, I would much rather blow this up myself to activate another copy of it, because this isn't a hard once per turn, which probably should be on the card. So, like, you should actually just erase the protection effect on it, because it doesn't accomplish anything. The field spell is already good enough, and it already does something on activation more than it does on field. So you should probably just erase the protection, because it doesn't. It's just blanket crap on your card that doesn't need to be there. And then let's see this trap. Nucleanser Meltdown. I already know where this is going. Does this search monsters? Okay, yeah, it just searches monsters. When a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated while you control a Nucleanser monster, you can remove one toxic counter from one monster your opponent controls and negate the activation, and if you do, banish it. You can remove 3 toxic counters instead to activate this card from your hand, but banish this card after resolution. This is actually pretty cool. It means your opponent, you don't just get blind negation. It actually means you have to have been interacting with your opponent before you can even just use its normal effect. But then if there's a lot of interaction, you can activate this from your hand, which I actually really like the design of this card. I think this is pretty cool. And yeah, so no more custom cards except in the extra deck. Let's read this thing. Ultimate Nucleanser Beast Radiaction. 1 zombie type tuner, 1 or more non-tuner monsters. When this is synchro summoned, place 2 toxic counters on all monsters your opponent controls. Each time your opponent summons a monster, place 1 toxic counter on that monster. You can pay 1,000 life points and remove 3 toxic counters. Banish 1 card on the field. A monster cannot be unaffected by this effect. You can only use this effect of this once per turn. Crazy enough, I don't think this is actually broken. I think this is... so it rewards the play style of the deck. It accumulates for its own effect. So even if you're just summoning this just blankly, it can really be good. And it's also not a quick effect. It's not a quick effect to get that removal, so it being absolute removal, even against monsters that in theory would be unaffected, is fine. Because let's say they do have Masterpiece, this is a card that even if you're like, if they're unaffected, that means they weren't gaining the counters. So you have to like, you still have to like fight your way to get the counters until you can affect it. So this is actually very well designed, and I am actually pleased with what I'm looking at. I actually think this is a really interesting archetype. It's counter based, which in theory would be really bad, but they don't need very many counters. And yes, while the counters involve interacting with your opponent, they can still be accumulated just by your opponent playing the game. So I actually really like this. Yeah, and that's all I gotta say. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. And remember, Master DinnerFlax will take your soul.